This is Campus Takeover, brought to you by Trib Preps. Each week we'll visit the campus of one of Friday night's marquee matchups. We'll break down key storylines and talk with players and coaches from both teams. And afterward, we'll pick the winners of the biggest games. Hit it! We're singing in the rain here. It's Campus Takeover at East High, where the Leopards are back in the forefront of the Utah high school football scene. Now, last year was a little bit uncharacteristic for this program, finishing below 500 for the first time since Brandon Manich took over in 2010. So what do we really know? They beat Syracuse and they beat Clearfield, but they struggled against Centennial, California. Now, granted, Centennial is a consensus top 10 ranked program in the nation, so this week will serve as a better barometer of exactly where they stand. Valor Christian is coming to town, and they're a traditional power in Colorado. Now, they're 1-2, but that record itself is deceiving as well, as they played another top-ranked team in Colorado and lost against another power in Arkansas. The Eagles won this meeting last year 35-14, but it's expected to be a lot closer this season. We'll talk with East coach Brandon Manich and some players, and I'm going to try and find an umbrella. Deal us a pair of three. Each week we will discuss the three best notable performances and three surprise teams that caught our eye from last week. Quinn Meyer carried the rock 31 times for 243 yards and 3 touchdowns in Olympus's win against Northridge, adding another 68 yards and 1 score on 4 receptions for good measure. Dixie's Zach Hara threw for 344 yards and a half-dozen touchdowns in a shootout win against Canyon View. Chase Barley had himself one half of football in a win against West. Before the Titans called off the Dogs in the lopsided win, the quarterback threw for 196 yards and 3 touchdowns in 2 quarters of action. Mountain Crest was expected to be improved this season, but did anyone imagine the Mustangs would be 4-0? That happens to be a reality after a thrilling triple overtime win against Fremont this past Friday. Hunter jumped all over previously undefeated Layton. Although the Lancers were without Julian Blackman, who suffered a broken wrist the previous week, the Wolverines generated 227 yards on the ground, including 3 players combining for 6 touchdowns. With consecutive wins against Orem and Skyline, both of whom were ranked at the time, Wasatch is fully on the radar in the 4A classification. The Wasps checked in at number 23 in the Tribune's latest statewide top 25, and considering they have games against Springville, Maple Mountain, and Spanish Fork on the horizon, climbing the ranks is a distinct possibility. We're here with Brandon Manich, the head coach of East High School. They're preparing to play Valor Christian. They check in at number 7 in our statewide poll. Valor Christian is a traditional power in Colorado. Last year got the better of your program last season. What do you expect this time around?
Well, they've got, their coach does a great job of calling plays. They run multiple sets offensively. They got some great talent, obviously. I think they get the pick of the litter, much like Bishop Gorman does in Vegas. They got a tremendous quarterback in Dylan McCaffrey, which is Ed McCaffrey's son. He's a 6'5", 4-star recruit type of kid, runs and throws equally well. Some good running backs, big tight ends. They're big, they're physical, they're long, athletic type young men. So it's going to be a tough game for us. It should be a really, really good test.
What is the difference from where you were last year to where you are this year going into this game?
Night and day. It's last year we started a lot of young kids. This year we still have a lot of young kids playing, but those young kids developed a lot of experience. And looking back on the film from last year's Valor game, we were starting a few freshmen, a couple sophomores. They're now starting as juniors and sophomores, and a lot of those kids had jitters and they were jumping off sides and making young kid mistakes. But the biggest difference for us was the commitment in the off season. Much like our 2013 team, those kids really bought in and came early and worked hard and stayed late. And this group has done the same thing. They're a close-knit, family-like, brotherhood type of group, even more so than 2013. They're just younger than 2013. And so the difference for me, the main thing is the closeness and the work that they put in the off season.
How important is for Utah teams to do well in these games where you play a good out-of-state team?
I think it's important to do well and compete, show that we are on a national stage here in terms of Utah talent. Talent in Utah it gets better and better every year. Bingham has proved that. I mean, Bingham has proved that you don't have to go out and win those games to get the national recognition, but they go out and compete, and they're willing to make those games happen. And we kind of want to be on that same page. You know, we played Centennial Corona earlier this year, and obviously they got the better of us, and they're extremely talented. I think they're ranked number 3 in the country right now. But it's important for, you know, football, high school football has become such a national game. And to have these opportunities to play these national tier teams, and especially in your own house, is a big deal. And I hope that we have a good crowd that, you know, and a good support for a Utah team to beat an out-of-state team this Friday.
So how does Valor compare to Centennial? And then for people who didn't see that game against Centennial, it was closer than the score indicates. It just kind of got a little lopsided towards the end.
Yes, sir. You know, and I think they had a lot of returning talent. You know, they're heralded as one of the best teams in Southern California overall. We knew the challenge. It was going to be great. You know, they talked about beating Sarah last week 53-13 or whatever it was, and Sarah didn't have their starting quarterback. Well, we were without, you know, a couple stars on offense as well, and that included a quarterback. But we didn't make any excuses. We were young. We made some mistakes. We had a chance to make it 14-7 and 14-all. We just, you know, turned the ball over, didn't convert on 3rd and 4th and short. I really was proud of our kids. They went down there and competed. They weren't intimidated. The atmosphere was crazy. It was big. The moment was big, and our kids went down and handled it well. I'd like to have another shot at them, to be honest with you.
So, no disrespect to Syracuse or to Clearfield, but how hungry is this team right now to get a signature win? Because right now it's lacking in the season for a signature win.
No question. And no disrespect either to those two programs either. Syracuse is traditionally a power, and they're well coached, and you know, Clearfield had to make the big jump to 5A this year, and you know, and Coach Dyson has his struggles with his group and trying to bring them up to 5A. It is hungry for a signature win, and we've talked about that, and really not, I shouldn't say signature, but just getting a big win on our home field and starting off this season right. I'll be honest with you, this feels like week 1 to me. It feels like we're starting our season this week.
That was East coach Brandon Matich, and his team is getting prepared to play Valor Christian from Colorado on Friday night. We're here with East tight end and defensive end Sony Fanua and Loa Kafusi. Both of them are getting ready to play Valor Christian on Friday. Last season, the Eagles got the best of you guys, 35-14. What went wrong in that game?
I think our main problem last year was just our offensive line. Just being able to get off the ball. You know, we shrink down our splits to 1-foot splits, and whereas this year we're out to 3 to 4 foot splits.
What do you think, Sony?
Same goes, but other thing is communication. Our offensive line just had problems communicating with one another.
1 year later, you got more experience. This game should be more competitive than last year. How do you feel going into this game compared about how you were going into it last year?
Coming into this game, we feel really confident. You know, last week we have a bye. We're able to prepare more. We're able to do things more on huddle and watching film. And yeah, with experience coming back, we feel more confident.
So obviously, no disrespect to Syracuse or Clearfield, but Valor Christian is obviously a different type of team. Is this team hungry for a signature win, which Valor Christian would certainly be?
You know, coming back from California and the thing that we were able to do out there, you know, we didn't produce much offensively. Just coming back, and we want to be able to make a statement to the rest of the state.
You know, high school sports are supposed to be fun. How much fun is it to play national power like this, or is it more fun to play Highland down the street?
Oh, that's a tough question. You know,
You're probably going to go with Highland, right?
Yeah, I'll probably have to go with Highland just because the tradition that we've had with them. But to be able to put East High on the map is something that we really love to do, and something that we look forward to progressing throughout the coming years.
So you guys are ranked 7th in the state, and last year you had a below 500 record. Some people might say that's kind of strange that you're that far up in the rankings. Do you believe that you're deserving of that number 7 ranking?
I do believe. One thing that I know is with a bunch of returning players, we've got experience. We've know what we're doing. You know, our playbook this year is much bigger than what it was last year. We're able to do more things offensively, and then our defensive-wise, we're able to change things up.
For you personally, Loa, you're obviously getting highly recruited. Take us through your recruiting process right now and what teams are kind of at the top of your list.
So over the summer, I was able to get an offer from Stanford. So right now, I think just with educational-wise, they're probably going to be my top, and then probably Utah right behind them.
What about you, Sony? Are you getting attention from the next level right now?
Same goals, but except for Stanford, I'm looking at the U right now.
And so have they offered you yet?
Yeah. Or no, not really. They're just recruiting me.
Awesome. So what would it mean to you to play at the next level?
You know, just it's high school, so we got to go out and have fun and ball out. And like as Law said, put our team on the map.
That was East High's Loa Kafusi and Sony Fanua.
Murray and Max Tupai have grown together over the years. Fourth-year coach Mike Richmond has exhumed the moribund program that managed a mere 10 wins in 7 seasons before finally breaking through with a 6-win campaign in 2014. Tupai experienced those severe lows, but continued to set an example of excellence, which eventually translated to personal and team success.
It's crazy to think about how it went by so quick and how our program changed so quickly because of Coach Richmond.
With 20-plus collegiate offers, the senior defensive end is now widely considered one of the top 2 local prospects for the class of 2016.
I'm looking at Mississippi State, Texas Tech, maybe USC and UCLA, kind of the SEC schools.
Complacency is poison, so Tupai incorporated boxing into his workout regimen. Fighting fine-tuned his hand-eye coordination and footwork and helped him shed 15 pounds of unnecessary weight. Luckily for offensive linemen, they need only prepare for the swim move rather than his 1, 2, 3.
I don't know how to explain it. Kind of like football, but I take all my anger out on boxing.
The 3-1 Spartans host Skyline to open region play on homecoming night this Friday. The Eagles are 7-0 all-time against Murray, but have resembled Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde this season. They began 2-0 and climbed as high as number 12 in the statewide rankings, but followed with 2 consecutive blowout losses against West Jordan and Wasatch. Skyline is counting on its own sought-after defensive end Riley Sharp to ready the troops back into form.
The first 2 weeks we were always celebrating with each other, having a good time. The second 2 weeks we kind of got punched in the mouth a little bit and didn't know how to respond. But I think we do now. We came back against Wasatch the second half and did pretty well. So I think it's just a matter of when we get punched in the mouth to be able to not get our heads down.
Like Tupai, Sharp virtually never comes off the field. Now teams are attempting to mitigate his contributions by game planning around him. But Sharp feels he's made the adjustments to handle the added attention.
The first, yes, when I started, it was really hard and difficult for me. I kind of, I just shut down personally. I thought I did, but I think it's just important for me to not worry about anyone else around me when I'm playing and just focus on my job, my responsibility, and know that I have my teammates to do what they need to do. And, so I think it's just a matter of not worrying about everyone else's job and what the score is. It's just about playing the best that I can.
Both clubs desperately need a win Friday night in what could prove to be a pivotal match in the Region 6 race. But for fans, the game provides an opportunity to watch 2 of the state's best square off against one another. Sharp says Tupai's presence doesn't add any pressure, and he's excited for another chance to play against him. Tupai, he has a different perspective about the situation.
I feel like I need to do more work. I'm trying to work harder than he is, just trying to show out.
That brings us to our pick segment, and it's kind of an embarrassing segment if you think about it, considering our performances last week. Tom Warren went 2-5 and actually beat both of us.
How does that happen? I mean, we're supposed to know what we're doing, and obviously we didn't last week.
It was pretty rough. No excuses for that, but we promise we'll do better this week.
There were a couple of overtime games, though, in all fairness, and one that an extra point missed in the fourth.
There are no excuses for winners. No excuses. I actually forgot to introduce Brennan Smith. It's like a solar eclipse. You rarely see him, but when you do, it's special. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Trevor. Excited to be here and excited to make hopefully better picks than last week.
First game of the week is Morgan at number 24 ranked Juan Diego. The Trojans finally got some support
from their offense in a blowout win against Delta, while Juan Diego really struggled against Murray. Can the Trojans replicate their offensive performance against the Soaring Eagle, Tom?
I don't think so. In fact, I think Juan Diego ought to be a 3AA school and a 4A school overall. That said, I think Juan Diego is going to win 3A pretty easily, just like Judge did last week. So I go with the Soaring Eagle over the Trojans.
This one's tough for me, Tom and Trevor. I'm actually a Morgan native, as rare and endangered as that is, from a really small town. I actually think this game's going to come down to the running game. Morgan, a couple weeks ago, kind of beat Ben Lomond into the ground, 42-21, primarily through the running game. They racked up 361 yards. Juan Diego kind of struggled last week against the run against Murray. Hunter Jones, Murray's running back, ran up 244 yards and scored on the ground 3 times. I actually think the Trojans are going to go on the road and score a win against Juan Diego this week.
Big upset pick from Brennan Smith. I'm going to agree with Tom on this one. Juan Diego, although they struggled against Murray, Murray is an underrated team. They're on the rise under Mike Richmond, and they look great offensively. Juan Diego has the capabilities to score the football, which Morgan has not shown to be consistently able to do throughout the entire season. Although they did have a great win against Delta in which they racked up some yards, they haven't been able to do that against great teams. Juan Diego is a great team. I like the Soaring Eagle to get back to their winning ways. Number 16, Pineview, undefeated, hits the road against unranked Snow Canyon. The Panthers are coming off a bye week, and they benefited from that, jumping up in our top 25 rankings. Snow Canyon is 3-1. They lost a heartbreaker against Juan Diego in double overtime, courtesy of a blocked field goal. And their 3 wins were against lesser opponents in their opening weeks, while Pineview in itself doesn't have really a signature win. Tom, who do you think escapes the struggles of their preseason schedule?
I went down to Washington County early to see all of these teams and practice and talk to their coaches, and this game is a real mystery game to me. Pineview was supposed to be great last year with Cody Wilstead and made it to the semifinals. Snow Canyon struggled last year. I'm going to go with Pineview, but it's going to be a very close, tough pick.
For me, it's all about defense in this game. Pineview has done a really good job controlling the line of scrimmage, really stingy on that defensive side of the ball. 13 points per game they're surrendering. But most importantly, they've generated 10 turnovers this year, forced a lot of fumbles. I think that's what this game is going to come down to, and I'm going with Pineview in this one.
Incredible to think that Pineview is being analyzed for its defense. It's a notorious offensive club. They like to put up a lot of points, but their defense has shown to be the stronger unit at this point in time. Although their preseason schedule is a little bit weak, I still like them to beat Snow Canyon because Snow Canyon has not had a signature win. They're beating up Payson and Ogden, and then they lose to a smaller Juan Diego team. I like Pineview to remain undefeated and to remain our top-ranked team in the 3AA classification. Number 14, Roy, is headed to number 13, Fremont. Fremont is off a triple overtime loss against Mountain Crest last week, while Roy nearly shut down Clearfield's program for good. I mean, it was a blowout. And so Roy has great running backs. They're headed to Fremont, who is notorious for a great defense. Obviously, this is a must-win game for Fremont, especially in the Region 1 race. They still haven't played Skyview. And how do you see this playing out, Tom?
Well, my gut says Roy. My brain says Fremont. Roy's got a lot of experience from the 4A team last year, but moving up to 5A this year. I think the only difference is that it's on Fremont's home field, but Fremont's not very far from Roy, so I think it's going to be a really good game, but I'm going to go with Fremont maybe by 3.
I have to agree with Tom on this one. I think it's interesting because both of these teams have pushed bigger, tougher opponents around and really pushed them to the edge. Roy went on the road and pushed Jordan in a 34-28 loss. Obviously, Jordan has a high-powered offense, which they'll see in Fremont. Fremont took Brighton to the wire at home in a 28-26 loss. But I still think it's going to come down to Fremont's offense. They're averaging 41.5 points at home. Roy is actually scoring 36 on the road per game, but I think Fremont edges them in a high-scoring affair.
I'm going different between these two. I like Roy. Roy really showed they should have beat Jordan. They had the drive move, and they went down deep into Jordan territory when that drive sputtered deep in the fourth quarter. And I think Jordan is a better team than Brighton. Although Brighton is ranked number 2 in our rankings and Jordan is number 4,
Brighton has not looked very impressive this season, and I obviously Fremont struggled with Brighton at home, while Roy went to Jordan and nearly knocked off the Beat Diggers in a game in which both defenses are going to be physical. I like two running backs for Roy that could play at the next level. They're going to control the clock and control the game. I like Roy to win this one. Number 17, Desert Hills, is coming off a bye week, and they're headed to Hurricane. And Hurricane was originally ranked in our power rankings for our 3AA classification. Desert Hills obviously lost one of their better players in Nephi Sewell, who has a potentially career-ending neck injury, but they still have Nick Wormsley at quarterback. They're headed to Hurricane, which is never an easy place to play. It's obviously a great showdown of St. George teams. Tom, how do you see this one playing out?
Desert Hills at 1-2 is a better team than its record indicated. They've lost to Jordan and Roy, which are two of the big 5A schools. I think that tough schedule is going to start paying dividends now that they're down in Washington County. And so I'm going to go with the Thunder in this one.
Yeah, Tom, for me, it comes down to simply having a bye week. I mean, you've mentioned it. Desert Hills has been spending a lot of time in the northern part of the state. Now it's about time for them to get back down to the southern part of the state and start winning games. I think it comes down to that, and I think that Desert Hills scores a win this week.
Tom mentioned being underrated at 1-2. We still have them ranked number 2 in our Class 3 3AA rankings, but people have indicated, well, they're 1-2. You know, Dixie's 3-1. Canyon View is 3-1. That shows you how much respect Desert Hills has with this Tribune team. Tom picked the Thunder to win the championship this year in the 3AA classification. This is a really talented team, and although Sewell being out is a huge loss, they still have tons of weapons around them, particularly, as I mentioned, Wormsley, who is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in this entire state. I like Desert Hills to win potentially convincingly in this game as they get back to playing teams of their own classification. The 21st ranked Provo Bulldogs are headed to their crosstown rival Timpview, which checks in at number 6 in our statewide poll. Tony McGeary has the Bulldogs playing some of their best football they have in years. They've started 4-0 for the first time since 1988. That's before I was even born. Can they continue this strong start, Tom?
I don't think so. Timpview has just dominated this rivalry. I think this is going to be a closer game than it has been in the past, and a game between two schools that really don't like each other. It's an east side west side rivalry in Provo, but I got to go with the Thunderbirds. They're just are the stronger program and the stronger team, but it's getting closer.
Yeah, Tom, you mentioned it. I think that the deciding factor in this game is Timpview has been there before. It's a perennial powerhouse program. Provo, like Trevor mentioned, hasn't had such a good team since 1988. So the Bulldogs are obviously really talented on offense, but I think the difference maker in this is Timpview's experience, and I think the Thunderbirds roll in this one.
I like Timpview in this game, but a disclaimer. I would like to see what happens in the fourth quarter if Provo's close. All the pressure's on Timpview. They continue to win in this series. They continue to win state championships while Provo's up and coming. What happens if it's a one-score game or a tie game in the fourth quarter and Provo has the football with their high-powered offense? I don't think that's going to necessarily be the case. I expect this game to be close in the first half, with Timpview eventually pulling away for another win. Corner Canyon picked up their first win of the season against Orem. They're now 1-2, and they have to go on the road at number 12 American Fork. Obviously, Corner Canyon is an underrated program because they lost close games against Pleasant Grove, which at the time was ranked number 5 in the state, and then they lost on a miracle play against Maple Mountain where Jaron Hall made simply a great play with 8 seconds left in that game. They have to go on the road to number 12 American Fork, which also lost 2 close games against Highland, Idaho, a powerhouse in that state, and against Brighton. This, on paper, an unranked team against a number 12 team might not look great, but this has all the makings of a great game. Wouldn't you agree, Tom?
I think it has the makings of a really good game. Corner Canyon lost a couple of key players in the first game to injuries, and I watched Tanner Smith, the quarterback in American Fork, take Brighton down to the wire at Brighton, and I like American Fork in this game. I think the Cavemen have the potential to get back to Rice Eccles for the semis this year. They're a pretty good team.
For me, it's been kind of shocking to see Corner Canyon go 1-2 so far in the season. Trevor and I went down there and spoke to the players, and they looked like a team that was going to sort of take this classification by storm this year. But I still think they're trying to find themselves. American Forks scared me a little bit against Westlake, but they played Brighton tough. Again, Brighton's been down a little bit, hasn't played their best football yet, but I think that American Forks is going to take this one at home.
Corner Canyon is kind of at the mercy of its scheduling debacle. They still haven't even had a home game this season, and now they have a very tough non-conference game against American Fork while the rest of the state is fully engulfed in region play. I like American Fork's quarterback Tanner Smith and their running back Nathan Honey. They've lost a couple close games against some really great teams, and although Corner Canyon is kind of in the same situation, I like American Fork at home. And that brings us to our game of the week. The game of the week, Valor Christian at East High. This game wasn't close last year. It just wasn't. But East is expected to be a lot better this season. Do you think they can get it done on their home field, Tom?
Unfortunately, I don't think they can get it done. I think they're still working in a few parts, a few new players. I think this game is going to be closer. It's here. It's always hard for a team to travel here, but I just don't think East is quite there yet.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say East wins it at home this week. Valor Christian's obviously a really talented team, scored that victory last year, but these are high school kids and they're traveling a lot. I'm not a math major, but they went to Bentonville, Arkansas last week. This week they're coming to Utah. That's 2,081 miles round trip for 16, 17-year-old kids. I think that East plays well enough to win this at home, put stress on Valor Christian's defense, and scores a signature victory.
East is finally at full strength. They're getting a couple players back, specifically their quarterback, Johnny Lang, who is an impressive athlete on the football field. This team is hungry. They're hungry to prove that they can compete on a national scale and that they're deserving of their number 7 ranking in the state. I like East to win this game. I think they're a more talented team this year, and I think as far as being complete and being able to play 4 quarters, although they didn't do it against Centennial, California, they're going to do it Friday night, and they're going to pick up the win.
The rain is now threatening our survival instincts, but that's okay because we are dedicated to giving you the best prep coverage you will find in this state. As I'm getting soaked here, this is Tom Wharton, this is Brennan Smith, and this is Campus Takeover. I'm Trevor Phibbs. Thank you. We'll catch you next week.